growing up, born in 1945, the women's movement hadn't started at all. Men were power, and now with the women's movement, they still think they are power. And they were hierarchical in their sense of power. And I didn't do sports. I did really well in school. I entered science fairs and that sort of thing over in Germany. We were there 54 to 61. And then dad died, and I didn't really have a father. As a father, I had a man who fought in World War II and in Korea. And at home, he had a job and he chain smoked cigarettes and drank. And if he did anything to his two sons, he disciplined them. But as far as play with them, it didn't exist. And so I grew up a sissy boy, and I say that with pride because if I had a magic wand, women would be in charge of everything for the next 1,000 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a woman that showed up for you as a kid.
Well, mom was at that time a traditional mom in that she did all the work.
Yeah. Okay.
And she was pleasant. She was a school teacher mom, and she loved her sons very much, a lot, because you could see that there wasn't really an exchange of love between her and dad, except that they lived in the same house. And
Yeah.
so when he died and we came back to the States and I experienced racism to the degree it was in Virginia in 1961, I understood all the shit I saw in newspapers about racism and the fighting blacks were doing to become human. And it was very clear that that was my fight too.
Yeah. Yeah. Your heart went out to them.
And yet I was in a public all-white school
Right.
in Arlington, Virginia, which had many blacks, but they went to a black school.
Yeah.
And I couldn't say the N word. I heard the N word. I would correct them, and then they would beat me up.
Wow.
And then so I had fun. I went to college when I graduated, but 17, I was hospitalized 3 times. I didn't want to live in a world of violence and injustice.
Yeah.
I hated antidepressants because it wasn't really depression, it was loneliness.
Yeah.
And that's why, as a doctor, I've never, ever, as a family doctor in 51 years, given a psychiatric diagnosis or medication.
And what a sad thing that is, that here's this kid that's having a hard time. Your heart is not being filled. You're sad, you're lonely, you've been mistreated at school, and they say, well, let's put you in this really scary building that's a hospital and isolate you and give you, and we're going to watch you really closely and give you some chemicals to see if we can make you happy even though your life sucks. Right?
Well, and the truth is, Dad didn't play with me, so I really had a very loving mother who did and was a reader and that sort of thing. And so my life wasn't horrible at home. It was more away from home that things were,
In
that
every
at school and in that context, it was painful.
5 days a week, you had to go away, you had to go out. I decided several months ago to become a big brother and take on a young boy, to show up for a young boy that didn't have a dad. And now it's been, I don't know, it's maybe been 4 or 5 months, and there's a 7-year-old boy that I'm showing up for, who I heard him say on the playground 2 days ago when I was with him. He told another kid, they had asked if I was his dad, and I was like, no, I'm his best friend. And he said to the other kid, my father abandoned me. And And I'm like, wow, what strength it takes for a 7-year-old to say that to another kid on a playground. But I'm learning so much by showing up for this kid. I'm doing it because he needs it. And I want to be an example. I know there's hundreds of thousands or millions of American children that don't have parents at all, or don't have a dad, don't have a mom. So I'm doing it to set an example, but it's incredible what you miss when you don't have a dad. This boy had nobody threw a football with him. Nobody took him on a bike ride far enough away from home where he started feeling fear, and he could share with me his fear of riding along a street near cars. And we're working on all of this fundamental stuff. And so I'm so glad I'm doing it. And it's really easy to show up like that. You pick up the ball, you throw it to the kid, you give them a pointer, they throw it to, it's so elementary, but it means so much. So yeah, it's sad that when you were having this hard time, Patch, that someone didn't say, hey, how about if we take you to this magical place where there's these loving, creative people, and you can spend your day becoming a better, loving, and creative human. What would you like to learn? Would you like to learn painting? Would you like to juggle? Would you like to grow some food? Would you like to learn how to cook? There's so many wonderful things that you could have been learning, but our society said, well, maybe you need to come to this hospital and take these pills.
That's why we're building our hospital. It does all those things.
Without the pills. Yeah.
Well, without the psychiatric pills, there are some very good medicines and very important medicines.
Yes.
But the psychiatric ones, I mean, I've never found a public school in the world teaching 1 hour on love.
Yeah.
Or friendship.
Yeah.
Or equality.
Yeah.
And it
yeah, I agree.
You look around your classroom and you see men the way they're acting, and you don't want to act that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could have said this at the start for anybody listening. If you're not quite sure who Patch Adams is, this is the Patch Adams, the guy that the movie was made about, a movie called Patch, and also the founder of the Gesundheit Institute in West Virginia, a 300-acre property with 3 beautiful buildings. And the plan is to put a free hospital there and have 100 people living on this land in a collective communal situation where everyone earns the same income, from the surgeon to the janitor, and it's a egalitarian society offering free medical care for people. And not only that,
it's a duh.
It's a duh. Like, yeah, okay, like, right. Yeah, so, and not only that, but Patch has traveled around the world many times, given many lectures, and showed up at many hospitals and other places where people are maybe having a hard time, with a big troop of clowns ready to tickle and help people feel humor and have some relief.
Well, the truth is that it was after seeing patients for up to 20 years, I realized, as I lived the life of an activist, that things really need to change. And before that, I had refused publicity because I didn't want to be a public person. And then I realized that that had to go. And so I allowed publicity. And so I've lectured and performed in 82 countries in every state many times, mostly by myself. And I lecture, what is your love strategy? Living a life of joy, the joy of caring, humor, and health. And then I started, since I am a clown who is a doctor and not a doctor who is a clown, I could see from the letters I got, I answered all my mail. So I've written over 500,000 letters to 130 countries, and I'm caught up today.
One was to me.
So I realized that I can teach what and who I am on a clown trip. And that's when we started our clown trips. We've done over 350, ages 5 to 92.
Wow.
And most people haven't clowned, but if you put on a crazy outfit, then people assume you're a clown, even if you're just standing there going, oh my God, they're good, I'm no good. That's a clown.
Yeah. Yeah, a self-conscious clown. So you have, I guess you've obviously witnessed going into these places, into some possibly dismal hospitals that lacked
Mostly,
mostly.
your medical bill in this country is the number one reason you lose your home.
Yeah.
I haven't found one really happy hospital.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's hard to find a hospital that's not gloomy, huh?
Well, anytime you have a hierarchical thing where the hierarchy is based on salary, the doctor's the winner, and on down to the cleaning staff who you don't even know the name of.
Right. So I'd like to hear about when you go into these hospitals and you see people, they're very sick and they're maybe, the circumstance in the hospital is not ideal, but what it is when you guys show up, what do you see happen? What kind of transformations? Because like the title of my book is Wake Up Laughing, and that's because I am so impressed by the power of humor to talk about things that you can't talk about otherwise, like our stand-up comedians do, at the ability for it to. I love this one from studying TED Talks, that children watch the faces of their parents closely for cues, even the tiniest child. So like if a couple of parents are speaking with another group of adults and maybe things are kind of tense, there's something going on, like maybe trouble or something, the children are watching. But if one of the adults laughs and then the other group laughs, the children know, even a little child knows that things are okay. That laughter lets you know that you can relax, that there's not the threat of violence or anything. So humor serves so many purposes.
Well, clowning, I say clowning is a trick to get love close.
Nice. I like
That,
that.
one can use humor to do anything they want,
Yeah.
whether it's to the doctor or the nurse or the parents of a child or a child. And the more toys you have, I have 4 sizes of whoopee cushion because I found that farting was the number one funny thing in the world. And
It's the universal language.
I have, eh, when I clown, I have at least 20 toys in my pocket.
Okay.
And I usually seek out those who are suffering the most. And sometimes it's the parents in a room, not the child. And I don't want to imply that I only go in pediatrics. I go to all things. I've clowned on death row.
Oh, wow. Do you find that the humor you go to, is it more slapstick? Like you pull a rubber fish out and whack yourself in the head with a rubber fish? I mean, what's your style? What do you find most
Well,
effective?
if something doesn't work, I go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I live in clown clothes. So my costumer just sent me this shirt. And I'm so my entire appearance is that of love and fun.
Nice. Keeping it colorful. Yeah.
I do it on elevators. If I go in an elevator and see somebody really looking miserable, I attack.
You attack. Will you just reach into your pocket and see what goofy stuff you have in your pocket, or like what's your go-to in an elevator?
Well, I read their vibe. How are they dressed? What do they have in their hands?
Okay.
A lot of times it's simply friendly conversation. Why is anyone lonely? See, I don't think depression is ever an illness. It's a symptom of loneliness.
Sure.
And so huge numbers of people are lonely. It's the number one prescribed medicine.
Yeah.
And so you can go on an elevator, there are 5 people, and none of them are communicating.
Yeah.
If an attractive woman goes on there and there's some men, they might stumble in their forwardness, but it's not really skillful.
Right. So that's an art form, and you and I are twins in that, because I'm the one that will say something in the elevator. And the art of choosing the right words, if you choose the right words, the entire room will soften and open up. And it's easy to choose the wrong words. And in my book, I talk about just be bold, be courageous. I'm the guy that says wacky, nutty stuff in line at the grocery store. I say, whatever, just make some comment, and some of the people will look at you like you're crazy, and then there'll be someone maybe that gets it, and they're like, yeah, and then they make a comment and you make one back, and then maybe the people that were not sure about this strange, strangers communicating will lighten up. But
I do things like this. I say, I'm working on my belch. Would you like to hear a good one?
nice. That's pretty impressive. On demand. That's good. Yeah, and right away you'll find out who's loose, who's open, who's got a lot of tension in their lives. You'll find that out immediately. Yeah.
I've clowned in countless refugee camps. I've probably held 3,000 children that are dying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's rough, huh? You're in there.
No, it's not rough.
Yeah.
I'm not dying, and so I don't go, oh God, poor kid. I say, this child is alive, play with it.
All right. Yeah, yeah, you're standing above ground. But I hear
It
you.
never hurts me. That's, in my mind, that's selfish.
Uh-huh.
That I'm going in there to be love and to be joy and to be funny. And so a lot of times it's just putting a pair of tidy whities on your head.
Hey, that works. That probably works in any culture. Like, just so, is that one of the things in your pocket, maybe the back pocket? Like, if
Well,
nothing.
I have nose underwear, I have tidy whities, and then I have tucked in my pants a pair of tidy whities that you can get 8 people in.
Nice. And that you offer that as an exercise for a grieving family at a hospital. Hey, let's all see if we can get into this underwear together, guys. Come on.
Well, I experiment a lot with it. It doesn't have to be any sickness.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate hearing your tricks. I may use some. Yeah. I'm looking at my notes here real quick. Well, so here's a quote. As I looked through Dave's chapter headings, I saw a bunch of old friends that hold me up every day. And what I guess what I wrote down a list of the chapter headings that really apply to what you're doing. And there's 23 chapters in my book. And here's the list of ones that just come real forward when I think of Patch Adams. And one is being with friends, practicing yoga, singing, dancing, playing, being of service, spending time in nature, thinking happy thoughts, laughter, breath, love, meditation, gratitude. Now, I didn't invent any of those things. I just feel like we need to pay attention to these things and try to
Use
include
them all the time.
Try to use as many as you can every day.
On myself as well.
Yes, right. You're giving it out, but you're also making sure that each day, yeah.
If you've been with thousands of people dying of starvation, then what are you bitching about food for?
Yeah.
And what are you bitching about anything for? If you have, like I have, a great partner, I feel like the luckiest man in history that Susan loves me. And so if I can think of her, how can I be miserable ever?
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds like
77, I'm alive.
Yes, you are. You know, Patch, I almost ran out of toothpaste like 2 days ago, and I didn't have enough money to go buy a new tube of toothpaste, and I decided that avocados for my smoothie were more important than toothpaste. So I had to be strategic. And if that, and I know that many Americans never experience not having enough money for toothpaste. So, I've had to can't let my car insurance lapse. I've had to, just about have the power go out on the house and have used change from my change bowl to put gas in my car. And I had to laugh at myself that it was a hardship that I was running out of toothpaste and didn't have money to buy toothpaste, but it just kind of underlines our condition, how we are here in America with having so much, we're just flooded with resources. We have every food known to man, where we just walk into a room and somebody will hand us every food known to man. We have push a button and our house is warm. We push another button, then the lights come on, push another button and hot water comes out. And I don't think we appreciate those things because many of us were born with those. However, running water's only been around for 150 years. It's like brand new. So I really appreciate hearing that you have been at a refugee camp where children are dying of starvation. I mean, that puts things in perspective. And
well, gratitude is the ocean I swim in.
Yeah. And I just wrote that it's the foundation that hopefully our house is built on. When I was doing a Apache style vision quest once, I had a dream on day 3. It was 4 days of isolation and walking in circles in the forest. And on the 3rd night, I had a dream that I was in Mount Shasta City, which is where I've spent a lot of time. And I was in the foundation of my house. And the foundation was these big granite blocks of stone with big wooden timbers. And it was such a beautiful vision, the basement of my own being, foundation of my own being. And I like, it seems right that gratitude is a place that we build from, and that we return to gratitude as often as we can.
It's been very useful for me since COVID. Before COVID, I was on the road, and 18 of those years, I made $1 million a year. And that's why we don't owe any money. We built 3 buildings, etc. And I have been, over this last year, mentally realizing that everything can fold at Gesundheit, and it's not going to be miserable for me. I'll have more time with Susan and that sort of thing. And that to bitch and moan is one thing. And that's why I hope the people listening to this know that I now am in the greatest period of need for donations to build our hospital. The movie promised to build us and made enough to build us and never gave me anything and didn't answer my 5 letters that I wrote them. And 80% of the promises made me didn't happen. And I'm realizing now that if it all falls, we tried and had fun, whoopee.
Yeah.
But the need is overwhelming. So my need, quote, doesn't really go up if we had to fold, but creating a healthcare system, and I get letters from all over the world saying how important our work is to them. And so I keep at it, and as long as we can, I'll keeping at it. And if something happens and we can't go any further, I've prepared for that. But I'm today acting like this could be the day.
That it all happens, or that it
Yeah.
all happens.
Yeah, absolutely. That because all I have to do is open the letter and there's a $100 million check.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way, forever optimistic. You know, every time I was in the compost business for a long time, selling soil to people, and every time there was a woman customer and she was coming to have me fill her truck, I would always think, this is, maybe she's the one. You know, always ready for that miracle to happen. And maybe that's a good example of what it is to be alive, and with your heart in a good place, that you're always thinking that this could be the best day of your life.
Well, what I really want is a world where no one alive remembers what the word war means. They have to look it up in a dictionary, and then they don't believe that it ever happened.
Yes. I worked at Greenpeace and then at Sane Freeze, and the whole idea was ultimately we would put ourselves out of business. We would be so successful that everyone got the message that we're all connected, we have to take care of each other, that we're all part of the ecosystem of this earth. So to pollute the air is to pollute ourselves. And yeah, we want to put ourselves out of business. I wish I wasn't writing a book about mental health. I wish, yeah.
I think the worst decision that humanity made was nuclear family. We're tribal animals.
Yes.
And the gluttony of living alone or as a couple has cut down so many trees and is really leading us to extinction.
Yeah, that's a really good point. A lot of what I've been talking about for 11 years on my radio show, Farm Talk, at KSKQ, and a lot of what my book is about is, you know, the family unit. You gotta have a healthy individual. You gotta start with the individual, and then once you have a healthy individual, you want to look at the family unit, and the family unit has been fractionalized and compartmentalized, and I like that you're saying that since we have this model that each member, each sibling in a family has to go out and create their own independent institution, like that every nuclear family has to have a 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 square foot home, is so wasteful. Yeah, extremely wasteful. And it's basically, it's the high cost of isolationism, right? You're spending all this money and all these resources so that you can be lonely and sick. And we're missing the boat. And so that's why often I end up going back and looking at the things that worked in the past and the extended family. I always talk about the Waltons because anyone that grew up watching TV knows who the Waltons are.
I don't.
Okay, well, good for you. I was part of the American experiment of kids watching television, and so, but yeah, grandma and grandpa lived in the house with the family, and so yeah, I agree. I agree. The nuclear family is no good. You here, I'm going to quote you again from your preface to my book, and you said, quote, mental health came from friends, nature, the arts, living together, farming. That's what came to you when you were sitting there writing this preface.
Well, and also from lecturing and answering tons of letters.
Those conclusions came to you as a result of your lecturing?
And being with hundreds of thousands of patients.
Yeah.
And you would be shocked how few people have even one friend have any relationship to nature or the arts. They watch TV. The average American watches 5 hours a day.
Yeah. 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 That's we can't get everything we need inside a room from a screen by ourselves. Yeah, that's very close to home for me because you know, it's been part of my family dynamic as well. And so yeah, it's cool. I by looking through old Word documents of mine, I found the slogan for this whole thing that I'm working on, and it is this is my own quote, and that is, the trick is to find your medicine throughout your day, everywhere you go. So to have a life that feeds you from the time you get up to when you go to bed means that you're on your path, and that health should not be a struggle. If you just, so I feel like that's a great recipe for success, is that if you get everything you need each day from the people that you love, that you come in contact with, the food you eat, the time in nature, the meaningful activities that you do to serve others, I mean, on and on and on. From the time you get up to you go to bed, all of your efforts are life and soul sustaining. And I bet you learned that, Patch.
Well, what I found out young is that I had a brain. And that thinking was one of the greatest gifts to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And as I grew older, I found out how few people use their brain. You know, I became an activist in my teens, and I've been a raging activist ever since. Over those 60 some years of being an activist, I'm amazed at how much misery there is, how much loneliness there is in a tiny little planet with 7.6 billion people. You know, it's way too many people. And I'm just fascinated. You can see a fancy high-rise building in a big city with 1,000 families living there, and huge numbers of them are lonely. And they're buying things to enhance their life, and they think more about how much it costs than how delighted they are at reading Shakespeare.
We've come a long way from self-entertaining. That's one of the things I get into. It's like we've fallen into a spectator society, where even something like spirituality is where you go to church and you sit and somebody up in front tells you what it is to be spiritual, rather than like a Sunday dance group like I go to. where you participate, you are part of the religious experience because you're all equals in your dance. And another version of that is spectator sports, you know, like rather than going out and playing football or soccer with your friends, you watch other people do it for you. But
And they're millionaires.
yeah, and that's just, it's just not the same. Watching it is not the same as doing it. We're definitely missing the boat on that, in that way.
And that's why I kind of feel that religion started to fill the void, and that it said you don't have to actually meet God, you don't have to see God, you don't have to, all you have to do is believe and worship.
Yeah, like don't worry about having the experience yourself. I'm gonna do it for you, and you'll be fine. I hope we can get back. I hope we can get back to realizing the importance of the individual, and that's why I love referring to schools like Summerhill in England, where the needs of the child and the passion of the child and the children were allowed to be self-directed and follow their passions, so they didn't, you know, so they could just be going after what was meaningful for them, so that possibly they didn't have to have that thing in their 30s or 40s or 20s where they had to push back against establishment to assert their own identity, because they were allowed to be in their identity and cultivate their sense of self the whole time.
It's
So
why I've never given up on Gesundheit. You
yeah,
know, I could have quit 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Here will be a place, it won't cost you to go there. There'll be at least 100 really happy people there. You'll be nutty and goofy and play and sing and dance, and 3 waterfalls, a 4-acre lake, a mountain of hardwood trees. So nature is astounding. Tribal existence is astounding. And the arts are astounding. I mean, that's why I've collected a 40,000 volume library and a lot of artwork and a huge film collection and music collection, so that and it'll be goofy. It'll be goofy and loving. And no one will have a chance to suffer.
it sounds beautiful. It sounds beautiful. I'm really glad that you've held on to the dream, to quote a line from Pink Floyd's Final Cut. Hold on to the dream. It's inspiring. It's inspiring, and yeah, you know, it's funny, Patch. I've had a similar dream myself for a long time, probably starting back in the 90s when I wrote you, or it was late 80s. I wrote you while I was hitchhiking around the US. I was doing this Jack Kerouac kind of self-made writing workshop, traveling, hitchhiking, meditating, and I decided I need to reach out to Patch, because I really believe in what he's doing, and so I've also had spent a lot of time thinking about what would the ultimate healing situation look like, the ultimate healing place, and what would it offer, you know, and I've been influenced by J.R. Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings and the elven healing. I'm guessing that you're aware of the way Tolkien created, like if you were lucky and you got cut in battle and you didn't die, if you're lucky, you got carried to the elven hospitals and you woke up in this room filled with white light and just the most evolved humans in the world, in the most evolved humans in fantasy imagination, and everything, their healing techniques were advanced, and they were, in a way, they were, this might not sound good, but they were like flawless humans. They were flawless. They were so evolved that they would only do the very best for you. And so that always inspired me in my thoughts of what would the ultimate healing center look like. And one of the first things that I see are beautiful gardens. I mean, gardens that take your breath away and that also supply you with medicinal herbs and edible food. And massage and touch would be an integral part of this healing center. And so we're very in alignment, you and I, with the desire to create, like, you know, like somebody comes in with a problem and they've got some issue that's been going on for many years. And sometimes I pretend like I'm a doctor, and I'll say, well, as your doctor, I prescribe this book and this particular essential oil in your bath, and I want you to spend time around these colors. But so I'm sure you've gone there, but I'm like, okay, here's what I want to prescribe for you. I want to prescribe certain aromas for you to smell, certain colors. I want you to eat certain foods. We're going to give you massage. We're going to give you a person that will help you change, enhance the way you think so that your thinking will help heal you. And we're going to do Chinese medicine. We're going to do some Western medicine for this, but just every possible form of healing experience, starting with being surrounded by people who are very vital and alive and so together and so healthy that their cup is just spilling over. So they're just going to give you they're just going to show up super present and clear because they're not suffering because they're worried about losing their house because of their medical bills, even though they work in the medical system, you know. So I've been having these thoughts. I'm sure you started these thoughts before I did. I was probably, you know, just, you know, at home watching cartoons on Saturday morning while you were out marching in the streets. But I've had a similar dream.
Well, Gesundheit is 51 years old, and it didn't start on the first day.
Right.
It really started at 18 when I was with Martin Luther King, and I said, wait, I can be exactly who I design. So I will be happy, funny, loving, cooperative, creative, and thoughtful, filled with gratitude all the time.
Yeah. What a great revelation to have.
Given me an unbelievable life and a breathtaking partner.
Yeah, and a beautiful piece of land, 300 acres with forest and waterfalls and big lakes, and yeah, and it's just, I'm going to throw it out there again that people can go to patchadams.org to see the amazing website and get connected with Patch and help him out with his project to create this free hospital.
Please donate.
Yes. And while you're at it, after you go to Patch's site, you can go to davidcmunson.com. And, you know, Patch, I'm so grateful that you wrote that preface for my book. One of your quotes is that this is a quote, initial interviews with patients were 3 to 4 hours long to ascertain patients' relationship to the chapter headings in Dave's book. So if you spend 3 to 4 hours with a new patient trying to see how much of healthy living your patient practices, like where are the holes, right? Where are the holes in the fabric of their health? What's missing? You know,
I found 15% of people love themselves.
Wow. That's the positive way of putting it. 15% of people love themselves.
What an embarrassment. If you have food and a friend, what are you bitching about?
Yeah. Well, okay, Mr. Tough Love. There's another way to look at that, and that is to just, in my book, I offer a simple mantra. And the mantra is, I got this from a Marijuana Anonymous meeting in Santa Cruz. California, 1990, about 1990. And the mantra is this: I love myself unconditionally at all times. And I have been saying that to myself for about 20, 23, 24 years now. And it is a universal balm. I've used it to keep demons away when I was in some crazy space where I was scared. But the most important thing, that saying, I love myself unconditionally at all times, the most important thing that it does, I think, is it allows the body to calm on a molecular level. It allows your body to calm, and it allows you to fall into total harmonic alignment where there's no tension in your body. And it also allows you to ask the question, is there anywhere in myself that is not in love with myself? And
I just wanted to know, I see that we have 5 minutes. Was there any particular direction we haven't gone?
Yeah. So it's showing that we have 5 minutes, huh?
Well, I heard this was an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you're looking at the time. I see. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that's good. I appreciate, I started my timer late, so thank you for pointing that out. And yes, we have 5 minutes. Well, the self-love thing is important. And I wanted to share that my son, who maybe feels a little uneasy about self-love, once drew a picture of me as a young man. And he drew this picture of me, this, big human standing there with bell bottoms. And I think I had one eye and all this stuff. And I was wearing a shirt that says, I love myself. And he saw that as a way to make fun of me. But I feel like I've gotten pretty good at loving myself. And then he also had a little note on the side, like he had a little arrow pointing at my brain, and he's like, Dave's brain, where all short-term memory loss begins. So my son was teasing me about being in self-love. And that's why I recommend the Human Awareness Institute, and their workshops on intimacy are very helpful for achieving self-love. But yeah, that's the foundation of what we're talking about. You've got to have self-love
And fun.
What's that?
And fun.
Yeah, fun is important. Yeah, fun. You made a quote. Here's a wrap it up quote. This is from the preface that you wrote. Let us all become peaceful, fun creatures. The human race is in great need of your consciousness directed towards love and care for all life on the planet. We're all needed. We're being called. Now is the time to put love first and get that shift into the heart. So yeah, so I'm so grateful that I've had a chance to come to become a better friend of yours and closer with you. And I really appreciate how you show up, Patch, like in a unique way today. You show up by answering your phone. You show up by writing letters. And so I'm honoring you for your dedication, your steadfast dedication to what you believe in. And man, I want to see both of us succeed. My goal is to help the suffering from anxiety and depression with all ages here in America. And your goal is to help make healing available and help broaden. You tell me what your goal is. I don't know.
I want to feminize our world.
Okay. All right. And by that the heart shift and all that stuff comes with it.
And fun.
Fun feminization. All right.
And care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost every problem of history was caused by men.
Yeah.
So we need to change and our gender needs to be more goofy.
Well, I'm grateful that I had a mother that showed up in my life and was a very strong figure in my life. And I feel like I'm very in touch with my feminine nature. I'm a nurturer. I love taking care of a home and a hearth and a kitchen. And I feel like people like there was a movement for women to get out of the kitchen and because they wanted to have a career like men. But I feel like running a home and running a kitchen and keeping the fire going and keeping the food, I don't know if there, and caring for children and raising children, I don't know if there is a higher work in this world. So I feel like
Well, when I grew up, it was never honored.
why not?
It was called women's work.
Yeah. So I've come to know through my radio show and things that for some reason the Italians have a great example of what a kitchen can be and what a home can be, with grandma and aunts and uncles coming through to get food coming in from the fields, and that I know we've been throwing the baby out with the bathwater, like poo-pooing, like making it seem like working and running a home is like some low thing. We're missing the boat.
Well, let's get to work.
Yes, let's get to work. Having a home that is alive and that doesn't die every day when everyone leaves and then somehow come to life in the evening. I think our homes need to be alive all the time so that anytime anyone shows up, there's people and dogs and everything to greet you. And children don't come home to an empty house. That's a tragedy. I don't think it was hardly ever that way. I mean, on occasion,
If it was communal, it would never be that way.
yes, yeah, and yeah, it makes sense in every way. Resources, functionality, security, in every way. All right. Well, thank you, Patch.
You bet.
Thank you for showing up, and lots of love to you, and may you all your dreams come true.
Well, the dream what would be really nice is where no one alive knows what the word war means.
I'm ready for that.
So much love.
Same to you.
Till next time.
All right. Thank you, Patch.
Thank you.